Hey guys, I'm so glad you could join me today. We are going to start a new project. It is on complementary colors. This is something that we've learned before, but in case you forgot, complementary colors are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So there's three different sets that are your main sets. You have orange and blue, and red and green, and purple and yellow. So for this project, we're going to do something that takes what we've previously learned and kind of morph it into something else. So it's going to look something like this. Like this. This is a simple cactus, and then we also have a simple background. For this project, you don't have to go crazy. You can do something that you're familiar with. So we've done cactuses before, so you understand how to draw these. That's why I chose this one. You could also choose, say, a flower. You could choose an object of your choice. You could go crazy and do like a cupcake. You can do an anime character. Just whatever you do, just realize that it needs to be a monochromatic object. So the monochromatic object is going to be, remember, it's one color and all the different shades. So this is just different shades of green. And then its complementary color is red. So we added a little bit of red here. Same thing, all monochromatic. And then my background is just colored with color pencil. So for this project, you need a few supplies. Most of these things you have at the house. You can use any kind of paper. You could use computer paper. If you have a sketchbook, you could use drawing paper, notebook paper, any of those things are fine. You also need some type of ruler or straight edge. If you don't have a ruler or a straight edge, you can simply take a piece of paper and fold it a few times and then use that as your straight edge. And then some type of coloring utensil. For me, I'm going to use some color pencils. If you don't have color pencils, you can also do this project in watercolor. You could do it in pastels. You could do it in crayons. I don't suggest doing it in markers because markers are really strong, and to get proper coloring, it's going to be a little hard. But any of the other ideas or types of media will work just fine. So first thing that you want to do is you want to, get your paper and you want to create some type of sketch. So for this one, I'm going to go a little bit on this. You can either go horizontal with your page, or you can go vertical with your paper. So I'm going to go vertical with my paper. Now, if you're not sure on what you want to do, you also always have the option of pre-draw. So if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go vertical, I can just sit there and I can draw this type of cactus. Or maybe if I want to go this way, I can draw this type. And this one has like a bottom. If I turned my page horizontal or landscape style, I could do something with two. So it really just kind of is up to you and what you want to do. So pre-sketch is always the best option. I knew ahead of time I was going to do a cactus anyway, so this might not necessarily be necessary, but if you're a little torn on what you want to do, pre-sketch is always a good idea. So remember, with a cactus, you can either give it a skeleton, or you can just draw if you're comfortable with that. So for mine, I'm going to go ahead and give it a slight skeleton, and I'm going to do a taller one with a little bit shorter one on the side. So this is going to be my taller one, and then this is going to be my shorter one over here. And remember, you always draw light until you know it's right. So we're going to draw a nice big curve, and it's going to come down. You do want your object to take up the majority of your page. You don't want to sit there and have a tiny itty bitty object, that's this big in the middle of this gigantic paper. So make sure that it stays nice and large. Oops, sorry. Then I'm going to draw my other one over here, and it's going to come down like this. So if I sit there and I'm like, ooh, yep, that's what I wanted, and maybe I want on this one to have a flower, so then I could also sketch me out some type of flower as well. And this is gonna create some overlapping onto the other cactus, which is always nice because it creates depth, okay? So once I have these drawn, I'm gonna erase my skeleton part, and I'm going to go ahead and do where it makes it look like it's round. So this is gonna come down. Remember, you have this like dot right here. It comes down here and down in the center. And this comes out, and up and over. And we'll do the same on this one. If I go ever too fast on the drawing, because I know I draw pretty quick, please feel free to pause the video and rewind if you need, start back over, whatever you need to do. So here are my two cactuses, and then I'm also going to go ahead and add, on this one I want to have a ground because I want to try this out. So these are going to be in the ground like this, and they're going to come down. And then this is just going to kind of curve around, behind, and over here again. So here's my ground. Once this is done, then I need to figure out my simple background. So for your background, the biggest thing is that you want to make sure that it's, again, simple. You can do horizontal lines, you could do vertical lines, you could do diagonal lines, you could do checkerboard, whatever it is you choose. You do want them to be pretty consistent. So if you're using, say, some type of paper that you folded, you would just have to find a way to measure it out. You could use your fingers as measurement. You could use a pencil as measurement in between. If you have a ruler, you'll want to go ahead and use, obviously your inches. So on this one, I'm going to line it up. Remember, you always start on the same side, and I'm just going to do every 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2, 8, and 8 1/2. Slide down to the other side and play repeat. Then you can do this in 2 different ways. I know for a fact that I'm going to be using red in the background and I'm going to be using color pencil, so I'm just going to connect my lines with red color pencil. If you're uncomfortable with that, then go ahead and just use pencil, and then you can trace back on top of your lines later on with your actual color pencil or whatever utensil you're using. If you are doing watercolor, you will want to make sure that your lines are really light, because otherwise they will be spread by the, your pencil lines will get spread with the water from your watercolor. And I'm not going past my ground. I want to try something a little bit different on that section. So I will just go up to where my ground is. And I missed that line. And I'll go ahead and fast forward this part. Okay, so I finished my background, and because I wanted to try a different type of ground on the bottom, I'm going to use pink, which is a shade of red, so it's totally okay. Remember, because it's monochromatic, it's any shade of that color. So I'm going to erase those on the bottom because I'm going to have my lines go a different direction. So this is going to go like this. I'm going to outline this part. And then I'm actually going to curve my lines. So I'm going to turn my page for just 1 second. I'm going to follow the same curve. So I'm just going to kind of come up and around like this. And you want to be pretty consistent with your curves. Now it might run into this line. That's okay. And then you would just continue. Remember, if you can't make your mark, maybe like right there, you would just pick up where you left off. And one more. So this is the start of what I have. Whoop, there we go. And from here, I'm going to work on, my cactus and, give it some type of a little bit of shading, which we haven't really worked with too much, but it's no different than just coloring. So I'm going to show you some examples, and then I will show you kind of what the end product should look like, or pretty close to it. I won't be doing the whole thing. So I will kind of outline this pretty dark, and these are just my original lines. So I'm gonna go like this. And remember that you always, whenever you finish with your colored pencil, you can go back and erase your actual pencil, because you don't want those lines to stay there. And what's nice about that is when you erase your pencil, it really won't take off your colored pencil. Now, if you're doing any other type of media, crowns or watercolor, it's a good idea to erase parts of your pencil also. So I'm just going to kind of come in here and get rid of that. So on here, I'm going to just kind of not push near as hard, but I'm going to color in right along next to the darker green like this. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Go around this flower. Now if that drives you crazy, you can color your flower in also, but again, it should be a red because those are the colors that we're using, because we're using complementary colors. You don't want to switch up the color because that would just be weird. And then you want to push even lighter. And remember that you're always coloring the same direction. It's really important because if you switch the direction, it's going to turn out really weird. So here's this, and then I'm going to switch over to this like lighter green, and I'm just going to kind of lightly color in the middle. This is just going to give it a little bit different of a texture. Now, if you don't have all these colors, say you just have green and yellow, you can do the same idea with just green and yellow also. You don't have to have this extra green. I just am a really big fan of this green as well. So I'm going to kind of fill this in, and then I would go back, and then I would just in the center highlight my yellow, and this is going to give it kind of the round effect as you go around. So you're going to do each section the same way on both cactuses. So I'm going to finish up this big cactus, and then I will show you the finished products. Okay, so I went ahead and finished this one up, and I went ahead and did my flower real quick too. For your background, what you want to do is you want to take your complementary color, so with the green it's red, and you want to color in every other line. If you want, say, your whole background colored rather than it being red and white stripes, like this one was red and white stripes, then you could do red, and then you could do like a really dark red, or you could do red and like some other type of pink, but you still want to stick with your color scheme. So when you do this, you just pick one color. One of the biggest things is again still coloring all one direction, trying to get the same pressure so it looks the same, and you'll want to go all the way up, try to stay in your lines, and you'll continue with this, and then you would keep going and going and going until you fill in every bit of all of these lines. Okay, you could even potentially ombre it up if you wanted to. And then for the bottom of mine, I chose the pink, and so this one I am going to do the same thing, except for I'm going to color these ones just a tad bit darker, and I'm going to still do every other one. And again, if you wanted to add more, you can do another type of shade of pink or something along those lines. So there's lots of options. There's a lot of options with this project. You don't have to stick with, just this. It's not concrete. The main thing that's concrete is your color schemes. So again, make sure that, you keep with your complementary colors. So red and green, purple and yellow, or blue and orange. I hope that you guys enjoyed the lesson. Super excited to see what you turned out. And I hope, wasn't too complicated and that you overall had fun. So thanks for sticking with me. I hope to see you on our next lesson.